And a good Monday morning to you, Roger Hill of Wuthering Heights. This weather video is driven by 802cars.com, representing 802 Toyota, Twin Cities Subaru, 802 Honda, all located off of Exit 7 on Interstate 89. Looking at weather at large right now, we have this area of low pressure, fairly strong. It's going to be taking a track and following the upper level winds, basically, which you can see the thickness heights. We do have a trough of lower pressure with colder air digging in on the backside. A couple series of frontal systems, a warm front that has already moved on through with warmer air on the way. We could top out and see temperatures as warm as 50 today, and that'll be followed by this band of rain you're currently seeing there. Now looking at temperatures, this is the way it's shaping up right now. We have relatively warm temperatures, anomalously warm, and then on the backside of this area of low pressure, which will be moving through basically tonight with a passage of a cold front, we'll see sharply colder conditions. And then set us up basically for a relatively near normal temperature scenario for the middle part of the week, with another warm intrusion with the next bout of weather. And that takes place, it looks like, on starting on probably Friday night or more into Saturday, and then beyond that period, and then beyond the period with where we could see some gradient wind events as well. Each time we have these big warm intrusions, what we're going to see is the temperature that's going to be oscillating back and forth. And it takes a lot of wind to move in the warm air, takes a lot of wind to move in the colder air thereafter, and so forth and so on. So gradient winds, although not extremely strong, but right up there, that could cause some impacts for utilities. That's going to be our main concern. We're looking at that for the late part of today into tonight and into tomorrow morning. And then the second one to come, it looks like late in the coming weekend, where we'll probably have some gradient wind issues as well. Looking at the European model incrementals, what we can see here is some rain that has moved on through, a little bit of a lull, and then that lull is going to move on out, followed by the band of rain. Aloft, cold enough to see some snow mix in some parts of the Adirondacks. Not as much for Vermont, with kind of a mixed in rain snow shower scenario. That'll be setting up later overnight tonight as temperatures max out close to 50 degrees and then make a pretty sharp fall once we get into the overnight period. The gradient winds associated with the frontal system and just a little bit behind it will be also in play. And there's a little secondary, which could even be called an Arctic front, that blows on in during the overnight period, and that could make for a couple snow squalls, but as it looks right now, these have kind of been backing off. But our weather should be quieting down considerably once we get into Tuesday, and it's pretty much the end of the event. We have an area of higher pressure, a little bit of lake effect bands with, again, some strings coming off the Great Lakes, mostly Lake Huron. A little bit of area of higher pressure then goes to work as we get into the day on Tuesday into Tuesday night, and that area of higher pressure pushes right out. We have Wednesday's little fairly small disturbance that's going to work on through. It's going to bring us about a dusting to an inch of snow accumulation, and then that moves on out. And then it looks like on Thursday, another ridge of higher pressure will develop for what could be another good project weather day. The two best days this week will be basically Tuesday and Thursday, and then followed by the next little a disturbance that starts to work on in, probably associated with this warm front here. And this is going to set up another mild intrusion, but it's this main weather system here that holds off until the weekend, where we're looking at probably a start out, maybe a little bit of a mix somewhere along about Friday night into early Saturday morning, and then it changes back to rain. And it's very similar to what we're going through right now. That'll be followed by a little bit of snow showers and flurries after the period. We're talking just beyond this outlook period, and that looks like it sets up basically and then moves on out with a couple of very small clipper systems. This weather pattern is very, very active, and it's going to continue back and forth with a lot of these temperature oscillations. The GFS ensemble plumes are still with us, and they haven't pulled this away just yet. So using that, you can see the 3-hourly QPF, and this is their current storm. This will be the frontal boundary that's going to be working on through as mostly, if entirely, rain. And then a sharp cold front dries us on out. We get good weather on Tuesday. We have this little miniature system. This is fairly good agreement with the European model, by the way, the GFS ensemble. And then another dry day along about Friday. And then you can see the next weekend system we'll have to watch. And it looks like the GFS ensemble anyways tagging onto it pretty good. As precipitation goes, we're not looking at very much though. This entire event is under a ½ inch. And again, minuscule amounts and relatively dry, but the European, which is tagging on to our last weather system, the one that's in progress with rain, and then you put the other system that's going to be working through on this coming weekend, and you put the two together, and it brings us to near normal or slightly below normal total precipitation fields. This is the way the Weather Prediction Center 7-day total accumulated precipitation looks right now. So the blue here, that's 1 inch, that's 1 inch, so a little bit above 1 inch. We're looking at probably 1.5 parts of the White Mountains in New Hampshire, a little bit less in the Champlain Valley, and so on and so forth with this particular weather setup right there. The climate reanalyzer shows where the cold air is in basically Canada, stretching into the plains. We have warm air out ahead of that frontal boundary, which we're into right now, and then another warm-up is following that across the western part of the U.S. And what's happening is basically this air here, it's come off of Alaska, is now being pushed out, is what's going to be driven mostly across northern Canada, but also into our neck of the woods, but it's fairly temporary. Meteorological output statistics, the next 5 days of high temperature look like this. We're running about neutral, weighted together for the next 1 through 5 days. And about 3 days later, that's the way it's setting up. We do have a warming trend as warmer air will be pushing into the region. And this is our southeasterly winds that we were seeing up in the northern tier region. This is just not peak gusts, but basically just sustained winds. So a pretty good southeasterly wind continues this morning, and then what you will see is the frontal boundary, which gets into our vicinity here. This is about 23Z. That would be about 6 o'clock this evening. We'll start to move on through. The winds shift to more west-southwesterly, and the strongest winds interact with the southern Green Mountains. And this is mainly where our winds are going to be at their strongest. However, just about anywhere along the spine of the Greens, including northern parts of Vermont, could have some issues. So we'll have to watch out the eastern slopes with a west-southwesterly wind. This can also affect places like my location around Worcester pretty well. And just to carry that on, this is into tomorrow, Tuesday. The winds are out of the west, and then finally they lighten up. Area of higher pressure builds in for much lighter winds with a weak ridge. And then beyond that point, nothing major at this point. Roger Hill, Wuthering Heights. Thanks for watching.